Hey there, and welcome to Breakfast with Mark Daniels for Monday, April 27th, 2020. As always, I'm wishing your family well, and my family here, we're all doing okay. Like you, we're all going crazy here, trying to occupy ourselves with some of the simpler things in life, like dinner together, as we've mentioned before in previous episodes. But this past weekend, I saw parts of the United States outside of Long Island, and it was the first time I did so since Governor Cuomo put the state on pause many weeks ago in early March. Matter of fact, like you, I haven't been anywhere since then, except to my local Stop and Shop and BJ's Wholesale Club. Wasn't a trip that I took out of enjoyment or pleasure, but it was a trip out of necessity. My son Brian had to vacate his apartment that he rented for college in Virginia, so the two of us drove to Virginia with our masks in tow, along with a fresh box of surgical gloves and fingers crossed. A friend of mine had texted me, and she asked, what's it like in Virginia compared to here? I bet they're not as locked down as New York or New Jersey. And quite honestly, the opposite is true. They were just as locked down. And they had cheaper gas prices, by the way. Even here on Long Island, you can find gas prices at the pump less than $2 a gallon, and it was $1.50 a gallon down there. Sure does make your head turn, doesn't it? Anyway, a couple of things I noticed on the trip. One, there was no traffic, as you might expect. The Cross Bronx Expressway was absolutely empty, both going and returning. I don't think that's ever happened to me ever. As a matter of fact, we always avoided the Cross Bronx Expressway, and we took the southern route, the Bell Parkway to the Verrazano Bridge, because we know what a nightmare the George Washington Bridge is, along with the Cross Bronx Expressway. This time, Cross Bronx both ways, and the bridge both ways, the George, and not an issue. But I guess you probably would have expected that. I guess I just wanted to tell you about it because I was so excited to be able to cross both east and west without a single issue. There have been times where it's taken us probably 3.5 hours to get off Long Island and cross the George Washington Bridge. This was record time. And despite the record time, the more I thought about it, the more I disliked it. That I missed the traffic. That I missed the congestion. That I missed the alternate routes coming up on my GPS because 2 lanes on the Cross Bronx were closed. I missed it. And for obvious reasons. This is not the way life is supposed to be on Long Island or Brooklyn or Queens or New Jersey. This isn't so. And because life is like this, so many people are suffering. Physically, emotionally, and definitely financially. It was about face from the joy that I felt doing Beyond the Speed Limit in the Bronx, and it really made me miss normal. And as much as normal is a big pain in the neck sometimes, I missed it. Like you, I'm looking forward to getting rid of this virus. Hopefully there'll be a vaccine, and bringing back all that Cross Bronx Expressway traffic. The other things I've noticed include quite a large number of trucks on the road, probably more trucks than cars in some places. And I remember complaining here on Breakfast with Mark Daniels sometimes about truck traffic and how maybe trucks should have a different route than cars, especially in rainy weather, because it was raining yesterday and all that truck spray is like zero visibility when you're trying to drive a small Honda. But again, I'm doing an about face. In looking at all those trucks and all those truck drivers driving from here to who knows where, bringing whatever, who knows, our thanks for keeping the stuff rolling, for getting it to stores, getting it to your front door. Like grocery store workers and frontline workers in hospitals, doctors, and nurses, those truck drivers have kept America rolling. So if you do drive a truck, our heartfelt thank you to you. And when you're driving the interstate, you often pass hotel after hotel after hotel. And of course, hotels have that prime property where their backyards are pretty much up against the actual roadway itself. That's why you never really get a great night's sleep on some of these places. But what I did notice was that every single hotel that I passed, their parking lots, which are usually jam full of cars, were absolutely empty. Not a single car in any hotel that I saw. Like the lack of traffic in New York, this too was a very strange sight. I mean, I knew people weren't going anywhere, but to see it brings on a whole new dimension of where we are today. So when we finally got off the interstate, Brian wanted to go to the campus before we went to his apartment to pack him up. He wanted to go to the school at least to take a few more pictures because obviously his graduation is not really happening at this point. So, of course, I said, yeah, sure, that's not a problem. So we went to the campus and we parked, and walking around, it was, again, a ghost town. It's not something that I didn't expect. It's not something that I didn't think was going to be the way it was. But to be able to see it at a place which is normally bustling with activity, students walking from here to there and gathering and talking, sports going on, cars driving and clogging the streets, it was like a complete ghost town. I can't tell you how many times I used to complain how long the lights were by his school and how many cars clogged the streets. But like the traffic that was missing in the Bronx, I also missed all that activity at the school. Quite a reality check. There were a few seniors here and there, dressed in their caps and gowns that they purchased at the school bookstore online in the last couple of weeks, putting on a smile and making the best they could out of the current situation. Now, whether Brian and his fellow seniors at his school or seniors at any other college or seniors in high school ever get their graduation ceremony in this year, well, it's too early to call that yet. But we know how hard you worked. And while a ceremony is nice, what's nicer is to know that you've made it. You did it. So from the bottom of my heart to all the seniors in college and all the seniors in high school, congratulations. And finally today, a lot of this has been popping up on mostly what I've seen on Facebook and sometimes Instagram. Those remarkably talented musical kids, whether they sing in a chorus, whether they play an instrument, whether they're a member of a band, they've managed to compile songs and remain socially distant. Last week on Breakfast with Mark Daniels, we played the Long Island quarantine version of We Are the World, featuring Long Island singers and Long Island musicians. My kids saw it and wanted to do their own. So I said, sure, why don't you pick a song and I'll produce it. The movie Tarzan has always been a favorite in my house when my kids were little, and it features Phil Collins on the soundtrack. So out of the blue, my daughter picked Son of Man by Phil Collins from the original Tarzan soundtrack. Took us about a week and a half or so to produce it, and it was certainly a lot of quarantine fun. In case you missed it, these are my kids performing Son of Man from the Tarzan soundtrack, originally done by Phil Collins.
To be wise, all these things will come to you in time. On this journey that you're making, there'll be answers that you'll seek. And it's you who climb the mountain, it's you who reach the peak. Son of man, look to the sky, lift your spirits, set it free. No, there's no
By the way, in addition to my kids, Mark, Brian, and Allison, special thanks go to Pat for providing the bass track. If you haven't seen the video yet, you can find it on YouTube by searching Quarantine Cover, Son of Man, Phil Collins. It should pop up. And that'll do it for this episode of Breakfast with Mark Daniels. Thank you so much for listening. Please stay well, be positive, and I'll see you next time for Breakfast with Mark Daniels.